Years after the divorce, the billionaire met his ex-employee and the baby he never knew. The fluorescent light in the break room flickered. It always did around 3 in the afternoon, like the building itself was tired. Elara Whitman stood at the counter, waiting for the coffee maker to finish its slow, gurgling cycle. The pot was half full from this morning, burnt around the edges. She poured it anyway. Someone had left a half-eaten bagel on the table, cream cheese drying at the edges. The fridge hummed too loud. Down the hall, a phone rang and rang until someone finally picked up. She was 30 now. That felt significant in ways she couldn't quite name. 30 wasn't 25. It wasn't figuring things out anymore. It was just life. The kind you built piece by piece when the big moments didn't work out the way you'd planned. Her apartment in Evanston was small but decent. Third-floor walk-up on a street lined with maples that turned gold in October. Income-based housing, one of the few things that made raising Theo alone even remotely possible. Her parents helped when they could. Small checks here and there that she always said she didn't need, but always deposited anyway. The radiator clanked when the heat kicked on. The neighbor downstairs played piano badly, but enthusiastically every Tuesday night. Theo's toys lived in labeled bins she'd bought at Target, the kind that made her feel like she had her shit together, even when she didn't. The coffee tasted like burnt paper. She drank it. "Elara?" She turned. Margaret from billing stood in the doorway, holding a stack of folders that looked ready to slide out of her arms. "Yeah?" "There's someone here from Crosswell Solutions. They're doing a walkthrough for the new software integration." Elara felt something shift in her chest, small, sharp. "Okay," she said. "Dr. Patel wants you to sit in on the meeting. 4th floor conference room, 10 minutes. Margaret left. The fluorescent light flickered again. Elara set the coffee down. Her hands were steady. They always were. She'd learned that early, how to keep the surface calm even when everything underneath was moving. The conference room had floor-to-ceiling windows that looked out over the campus. The medical center sat at the edge of Northwestern's Evanston campus, close enough to hear the L when it rattled past on the purple line. On clear days, you could see the lake, gray and endless. Dr. Patel was already there, scrolling through something on his tablet. 2 people from IT sat at the far end of the table, both looking like they'd rather be anywhere else. Elara took a seat near the middle. She opened her notebook, clicked her pen once, twice. The door opened. She didn't look up right away. She heard the footsteps first, deliberate, unhurried. The kind of footsteps that belonged to someone who'd walked into 1,000 conference rooms and knew exactly how much space to take up. "Julian Crosswell," Dr. Patel said, standing. "Good to finally meet in person." Elara's pen stopped moving. She looked up. He was older, not in a bad way, just more settled into himself. The suit was charcoal gray, perfectly tailored, but not showy. His hair had more silver at the temples than she remembered. He'd always had good posture, but now it looked less like control and more like habit. Their eyes met. For a second, just a second, something passed between them. Recognition, memory, the weight of things that had never been said. Then he smiled. Professional. Polite. "Dr. Patel, thank you for having me." His voice hadn't changed, low, measured, the kind of voice that made you lean in without realizing it. Elara's heart was doing something stupid in her chest. She forced her face into neutral. "Calm." The surface stayed calm. "This is Elara Whitman," Dr. Patel said, gesturing toward her. "She'll be your primary contact for scheduling and coordination." Julian's gaze shifted to her. His expression didn't change, but something in his eyes did. "Ms. Whitman," he said. "Mr. Crosswell." Her voice came out steady. "Good. That was good." He sat down across from her, close enough that she could see the small scar above his left eyebrow, the one he'd gotten from a skiing accident years ago. Close enough to notice he still wore the same watch. Silver, simple, expensive in a way that didn't announce itself. Dr. Patel started talking about integration timelines and data migration. The IT guys chimed in with questions about security protocols. Julian answered everything with the kind of easy competence that came from doing this 100 times before. Elara took notes. She didn't need to. She just needed something to do with her hands. At one point, Julian leaned forward to point at something on Dr. Patel's tablet. His sleeve pulled back slightly. No ring. She noticed. Hated that she noticed. The meeting lasted 40 minutes. When it was over, Dr. Patel shook Julian's hand again, said something about follow-up emails, and left with the IT guys trailing behind him. And then it was just the two of them. The silence stretched. Outside, a siren wailed, faint and distant. "Elara," Julian said finally. She looked at him, really looked at him. The years sat between them like furniture no one knew how to move. "It's been a while," she said. 3 years. 3.5. He nodded slowly. "You look good. So do you." It was the kind of conversation people had when they used to know each other and didn't anymore. Polite, careful, full of things that couldn't be said in a fourth-floor conference room with the door half open. "You're still in the area," he said. "Evanston, same place. And you're doing well." She wanted to laugh, not because it was funny, but because the question was so absurdly inadequate for everything that had happened since the last time they'd stood this close to each other. "I'm doing fine," she said instead. He studied her face like he was looking for something specific. She didn't give it to him. "I should go," she said, standing. "I have to pick up—" She stopped. His eyes sharpened, just slightly. "You have to pick up what?" "Groceries," she said. "I have to pick up groceries." It wasn't a lie. She did need groceries. Theo was out of the applesauce pouches he liked, the organic ones from Trader Joe's that cost too much, but were the only ones he'd eat without a fight. Julian stood too. They were close now. Closer than they needed to be in a room this size. "It was good to see you," he said. "You too." She moved toward the door. He didn't try to stop her, but as she reached for the handle, he spoke again. "Elara." She paused, didn't turn around. "If you ever want to grab coffee or something, just to catch up, no pressure." Her hand tightened on the handle. "I'll think about it," she said. She left before he could say anything else. The purple line was packed. Rush hour in Evanston meant students heading back to campus, professionals going home, and the occasional tourist who'd gotten on the wrong train. Elara stood near the doors, one hand on the pole, the other checking her phone. A text from the daycare. "Theo had a great day. He painted a picture for you." She smiled, the kind of small private smile that belonged only to her. The train rattled north. Someone's backpack kept hitting her shoulder. The guy next to her had headphones on, playing something with too much bass. Outside, the city blurred past, brick buildings, bare trees, the grey stretch of late autumn sky. She thought about Julian's face when he'd said her name, the way his voice had dipped, just slightly like he was testing the weight of it. 3.5 years. She'd been 26 when it happened, young enough to make mistakes, old enough to know better. He'd been married, miserable, yes. Already halfway out the door, yes, but married. It had started the way these things always did. Late nights at the office, conversations that went deeper than they should have. A shared understanding that felt like oxygen when everything else felt like drowning. And then it had ended. Fast, clean. The way you'd end something that should never have started in the first place. Except it hadn't ended. Not really. The train stopped at Central Street. She got off, climbed the stairs to street level and started walking toward the daycare. The air was cold, sharp in her lungs. Her coat wasn't warm enough. She kept meaning to buy a new one. The daycare was in a converted house on a quiet block, painted yellow with a bright red door. She could hear kids laughing before she even went inside. Theo was in the play area, building something complicated with blocks. He had her dark hair and her serious expression, but his eyes were lighter. Hazel, like someone else's. "Mama!" He ran to her, arms outstretched. She caught him, lifted him up even though he was getting too big for that. "Hey, baby, did you have fun today?" "I painted a dinosaur. Miss Rachel said it was really good." "I bet it was." She set him down, helped him into his jacket, the blue one with the broken zipper she kept forgetting to fix. They walked home together, hand in hand, Theo chattering about his day in the way 3-year-olds did, jumping from topic to topic without transition. Their apartment smelled like the lavender candle she'd left burning that morning. Theo dropped his backpack in the entryway and went straight for his toy bin. Elara stood in the kitchen staring at nothing. Her phone buzzed. She pulled it out. An email. Work. Something about next week's schedule. She opened it. Below that, another email, sent 20 minutes ago. The subject line was blank. The sender, Julian Crosswell. She stared at it for a long time. Didn't open it. Put the phone face down on the counter. The faucet dripped. Once. Twice. She still hadn't fixed that either. Julian sat in his car for 20 minutes before starting the engine. The parking garage under the medical center was cold, fluorescent lit, smelling faintly of exhaust and something chemical the cleaning crew used on the concrete. His Mercedes was on the third level, parked between a Honda with a dented bumper and a Subaru covered in bumper stickers about saving the bees. He'd read the same email 3 times. The one he'd sent to Elara, the one she hadn't answered. The subject line was still blank, because he'd typed 4 different versions and deleted them all. Following up sounded too corporate. Good to see you sounded too casual. We should talk sounded too heavy. So he'd left it blank and written 2 sentences. It was good to see you today. If you're open to it, I'd like to buy you coffee sometime. No agenda. He'd hit send before he could overthink it. That was 4 hours ago. Julian rubbed his face. His stubble was rough under his palm. He'd forgotten to shave that morning, distracted by a call from the company's CFO about a contract negotiation in Milwaukee that was going sideways. He started the car. The engine hummed, smooth and expensive. He pulled out of the garage and onto Chicago Avenue, heading west toward the expressway. Traffic was terrible. It always was. The stretch between Evanston and downtown was a parking lot most days, worse when there was construction, which there always was. He sat at a red light near the Whole Foods, watching a woman with a stroller navigate the crosswalk, one hand on the stroller, the other holding a coffee cup that was clearly too hot. He thought about Elara's face when Dr. Patel had introduced them, the way her expression had stayed perfectly neutral, professional, like they were strangers, but her hand had tightened on her pen. He'd noticed. He always noticed things about her. 3.5 years. He'd thought about her more than he should have. In the first few months after everything ended, he'd thought about her constantly. Late at night in the silent house his ex-wife had left behind, during long flights to client meetings where he'd stare out the window and see nothing but clouds. He'd drafted texts he never sent. Looked her up on LinkedIn twice and closed the tab before the page fully loaded. Eventually, the intensity had faded, became something quieter, a dull ache instead of a sharp one, the kind of regret you learn to carry without letting it ruin your day. But seeing her today had cracked something open. The light turned green. He drove. His house was in Kenilworth, a village north of Evanston, where the houses had gates and the lawns looked professionally maintained even in November. The kind of neighborhood where billionaires went to avoid being noticed. It was too big for one person. He knew that. His lawyer had suggested selling it after the divorce, getting something smaller, more practical. Julian had kept it anyway, not because he loved it, but because moving felt like admitting something he wasn't ready to admit. The inside was clean, minimalist, expensive in a way that looked effortless. Floor-to-ceiling windows, hardwood floors, furniture that had been selected by an interior designer he'd hired and never met. It didn't feel like home. It felt like a hotel where he happened to keep his clothes. He dropped his keys on the counter, opened the fridge, stared at the contents, leftover Chinese food from 3 days ago, a 6-pack of some craft beer he'd bought on impulse, half a rotisserie chicken that was probably past its prime. He closed the fridge. His phone buzzed. Not her. A text from his business partner, Gavin. "How'd the Northwestern meeting go?" Julian typed back. "Fine, they're moving forward. I'll send you the details tomorrow." Another buzz. His sister. "Dinner this weekend?" Mum's asking. He didn't answer that one. He poured 2 fingers of scotch instead. Sat on the couch. The leather was cold against the back of his neck. Outside, the sky was turning that particular shade of purple it only turned in late autumn. The sun gone, but the night not quite settled yet. He opened his email. Still nothing from Elara. He closed it. Opened it again 5 minutes later. Nothing. "Jesus," he muttered. He was 42 years old, a grown man, the CEO of a company valued at over $1 billion, with contracts across North America and expanding into Europe. He'd negotiated deals with major hospital networks that moved hundreds of millions. He'd given keynote speeches at international conferences. He'd sat across from venture capital firms and private equity investors who could smell weakness from 3 continents away and walked out with their signatures. And here he was, refreshing his email like a teenager waiting for a text back. He drained the scotch, poured another. The next morning, Julian was back at the medical center. It wasn't on his schedule. He'd cleared the afternoon for paperwork and a call with the development team about a bug in the latest software update. But he'd woken up at 5, gone for a run along the lakefront path, and by 7, he was in the car heading south. He told himself it was about due diligence, following up, making sure the client felt supported. He knew he was lying. Dr. Patel wasn't in. According to the receptionist on the 4th floor, a middle-aged woman with reading glasses on a chain, who looked at him like she'd seen 1,000 guys like him walk through that door with 1,000 transparent excuses. "Is Ms. Whitman available?" Julian asked. The receptionist's expression didn't change. "She's at lunch." "Do you know when she'll be back?" "Half an hour, maybe. You want to leave a message?" "No, I'll wait." He sat in the waiting area. The chairs were uncomfortable, plastic with thin cushions that had been sat on too many times. There was a water cooler in the corner, the kind with the big jug on top that always looked like it might tip over. Magazines on the table, 6 months old, dog-eared, mostly about health and wellness. He waited. 15 minutes passed. 20. He checked his email. Still nothing. 25. The elevator doors opened. Elara stepped out, holding a paper bag from the deli down the street. She was wearing dark jeans, a grey sweater, her hair pulled back in a low ponytail. She looked tired. Not in an obvious way, just worn, like she'd been up too early or hadn't slept enough. She saw him. Stopped. For a second, neither of them moved. Then she walked over, slowly. "Julian." "Hey." She glanced at the receptionist, who was very obviously pretending not to listen. "You need something?" Elara asked. "I wanted to follow up, make sure everything was clear from yesterday." "It was." "Good, that's good." Silence. She shifted the bag from one hand to the other. He caught a glimpse of a sandwich wrapper, a bag of chips. "Did you get my email?" he asked. Her jaw tightened. "Just barely." "I did. And I've been busy." "Right, of course." Another silence, this one heavier. "Elara." "I have a meeting in 10 minutes, she said, not rudely, just factually. "Okay." She started to walk past him. He didn't think, just spoke. "I'm not trying to complicate your life." She stopped, turned back. Her eyes were darker than he remembered. Or maybe they'd always been that dark, and he'd just forgotten. "Then what are you trying to do?" she asked quietly. He didn't have an answer. Or he had too many and none of them were the right one. "I don't know," he said finally. I saw you yesterday and I realized how much I've thought about you, how much I've wondered if you were okay, if you were happy." "I'm fine." "Are you?" Her expression shifted. Something raw flickered across her face before she smoothed it away. "I have to go," she said. This time when she walked away, he let her. That night, Elara sat on the floor of her living room, surrounded by Theo's toys. He was asleep, had been for an hour. She'd read him 3 books, the dinosaur one, the one about the bear who couldn't sleep, and the one about the moon that he insisted on every single night. Then she'd laid with him until his breathing evened out, her hand on his back, feeling the rise and fall of his small lungs. Now she was alone with the mess. She picked up a plastic dinosaur, a stegosaurus, Theo's favorite. Her phone was on the coffee table, face up, the email notification still unread. She'd read it, of course. The second she'd gotten back to her desk yesterday, read it, closed it, read it again at midnight when she couldn't sleep. No agenda, right. Men always said that. No agenda, no pressure, just coffee. Like coffee was ever just coffee. She'd loved him once, that was the worst part. Not the sex, not the secrecy, not the guilt that came after. The worst part was that she'd loved him, really loved him. The kind of love that made you stupid, made you ignore every red flag, every voice in your head saying this is a mistake. This will hurt, this will end badly. And it had ended badly. Not explosively. There hadn't been yelling or accusations or dramatic goodbyes. It had just stopped. His divorce had gone through. She'd congratulated him. He'd said they should take some time, figure things out properly, do it the right way. She'd agreed. 2 weeks later, she'd realized her period was late. 4 weeks later, she'd taken 3 pregnancy tests in the bathroom of a Walgreens on Ridge Avenue, hands shaking so hard she could barely read the results. She'd thought about telling him. Of course she had. Picked up the phone a dozen times, started texts she never sent, drove past his office twice before turning around. But every time she tried, she pictured his face. The relief in his eyes when the divorce had finally gone through. The way he'd said, "I need time." The way he'd looked lighter, freer, like a weight had lifted. And she couldn't do it. Couldn't be the next weight, the next complication, the next thing tying him to a life he was trying to escape. So she'd kept it. The secret, the pregnancy, the baby. All of it. 3 years now. 3 years of doctor's appointments alone, of late-night fevers and teething and tantrums in grocery stores, of figuring out daycare and health insurance, and how to answer when Theo asked why he didn't have a daddy like the other kids. Her parents sent money when they could. Not much. They were on a fixed income in Florida, but enough to cover the gaps. The income-based apartment helped. Still, every month was a careful calculation of what could wait and what couldn't. She'd done it. She was still doing it. And now Julian was back, sitting in waiting rooms, sending emails, asking if she was happy. The stegosaurus was still in her hand. She set it down, picked up her phone. The email was still there. She typed, "I don't think coffee is a good idea." Stared at it, deleted it. Typed, "I'm not the same person I was 3 years ago." Deleted that too. Typed, "You need to know something." Her thumb hovered over the send button. Theo's voice drifted from the bedroom. "Mama?" She locked the phone, set it down. "Coming, baby." She stood, walked to his room. He was sitting up, rubbing his eyes. "I had a dream," he said. "A good dream or a bad dream?" "A dinosaur dream," she smiled. Sat on the edge of his bed. "Tell me about it." He did. In the meandering, nonsensical way kids told stories, mixing up the beginning and the end, adding details that couldn't possibly have been in the dream but were now essential to the narrative. She listened, smoothed his hair, tucked him back in. By the time she got back to the living room, it was past 11. Her phone screen was dark. The third time Julian showed up at the medical center, Elara was standing outside. It was a Tuesday, just after 5. The sky was doing that thing it did in November, turning grey too early, the cold settling in like it had nowhere else to be. She was waiting for her Uber, phone in one hand, the other shoved deep in her coat pocket. She saw his car before she saw him. The black Mercedes S-Class pulled up to the curb, smooth and quiet. The window rolled down. "You need a ride?" Elara stared at him. "Are you serious right now? It's cold. You're waiting. I'm here. You're here because you keep showing up." "I know." At least he wasn't lying about it. She looked at her phone. The Uber was still 8 minutes away. Her fingers were already numb. Theo's daycare closed at 6, and if she was late again, they'd charge her $1 a minute. Last week it had been $12. $12 she didn't have to waste. She opened the passenger door, got in. The car smelled like leather and something else. His cologne, probably. The same one he'd always worn. Subtle, expensive. The kind that didn't announce itself until you were close enough to notice. "Where to?" he asked. "Little Sprouts. It's on Ashland, I know." She looked at him. "How do you know?" He shifted the car into drive. Didn't answer. They drove in silence. The heater was on, warm air blowing from the vents. NPR played low on the radio, something about city council redistricting. Julian's hands were steady on the wheel. No ring. She'd noticed that before. Kept noticing it. "You don't have to do this," she said finally. "Do what?" Whatever this is, the emails, the showing up, the rides, I'm not doing anything, I'm just around. You live in Kenilworth. This isn't your route home. He glanced at her. You remember where I live. That's not the point. What is the point? She didn't answer. Looked out the window instead. They were passing the CVS where she bought Theo's vitamins, the dry cleaner that had lost one of her sweaters last month, the coffee shop where she'd cried in the bathroom the day she'd found out she was pregnant. I read your email, she said. I know. You didn't respond. I didn't know what to say. He nodded slowly. That's fair. More silence. They turned onto Ashland. The street was lined with bare trees and cars parked too close together. A dog walker struggled with 3 leashes. Someone had left a couch on the curb with a sign that said free. You don't owe me anything, Julian said quietly. I know that. I wanted you to know that I think about you, that I've thought about you, that seeing you again made me realize how much I don't. The word came out harder than she meant it to. He stopped talking. She closed her eyes, breathed. You don't get to do this, she said. You don't get to show up after 3 years and act like we're just 2 people who used to know each other, like it was simple, like it didn't. Her voice cracked. She hated that it cracked. Julian pulled over, put the car in park. They were half a block from the daycare. She could see the yellow house from here, the bright red door. I'm sorry, he said. For what? For all of it. For starting something I couldn't finish. For letting you go the way I did. For not fighting harder. She looked at him. Really looked at him. His jaw was tight. His eyes were careful, like he was afraid of saying the wrong thing. Like he knew he'd already said 100 wrong things and was trying desperately not to add another. It's too late for that, she said. I know. Do you? He didn't answer. She reached for the door handle. I have to go. Elara. Thank you for the ride. She got out. The cold hit her immediately, sharp and mean. She walked toward the daycare without looking back. Behind her, the Mercedes didn't move. Inside, the daycare smelled like crayons and hand sanitizer. Kids' artwork covered every wall. Lopsided houses, stick-figure families, dinosaurs in colors dinosaurs had never been. Miss Rachel was at the front desk, scrolling through something on her iPad. She looked up when Elara walked in. Hey, Elara, Theo's in the play area. Thanks. She found him in the corner, building a tower with foam blocks. He'd gotten taller in the last few months, grown out of his favorite jeans, started asking questions she didn't always know how to answer. Mama! He abandoned the blocks, ran to her. She caught him, lifted him up even though her back protested. Hey, baby, good day? We played outside and I found a stick. Miss Rachel said I could keep it, but then I lost it. We'll find another stick. A better stick? The best stick. She set him down, helped him into his jacket. The blue one. The zipper still didn't work right. They walked outside together. Theo talked about the stick, about a kid named Owen who'd pushed him on the swing, about the snack they'd had that afternoon. Apple slices with peanut butter, his favorite. Elara listened, responded at the right moments. But her mind was back in the car, Julian's voice saying, I'm sorry, like sorry could fix anything. The Mercedes was still there, parked across the street, engine running. She stopped. Theo looked up at her. Mama? What's wrong? Nothing, baby. But Julian was getting out of the car, walking toward them. Her heart started doing something complicated in her chest. She put her hand on Theo's shoulder, not pulling him back, just grounding herself. Julian stopped a few feet away. His eyes moved from her to Theo, then back to her. I just wanted to make sure you got in okay, he said. We're fine. Theo was staring at Julian, the way kids stared at strangers, curious, cautious. Hi, Theo said. Julian's expression changed, softened. Hi. That's a cool car. Thanks. Is it fast? Pretty fast? Faster than Mama's car? Julian glanced at Elara. Something passed between them. I don't know. What does your mama drive? We don't have a car, Theo said matter-of-factly. We take the bus or Ubers. Mama says cars are expensive. Julian's jaw tightened. Elara felt her face heat. "Theo, we should go." "But I want to see the car." "Not today." "Why not?" "Because I said so." It came out sharper than she meant. Theo's face fell. She hated herself a little. Julian crouched down, eye level with Theo. "Maybe another time, okay? When your mom says it's all right." Theo nodded, still looked disappointed. Julian stood, looked at Elara. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to." "It's fine." "It's not. I should have just driven away." "Yeah, you should have." He nodded, stepped back. "I'll see you around." "Probably." He walked back to the car, got in. This time he drove away. Theo tugged on her hand. "Mama?" "Yeah, baby?" "Who was that?" The question sat in the air between them, heavy and impossible. "Just someone Mama used to work with," she said. "Oh, he seemed nice." "Yeah, he did." They started walking toward the bus stop. Theo swung her hand, already moving on to the next thing. Something about dinner, about whether they could have mac and cheese again, even though they'd had it yesterday. Elara looked back once. The street was empty. That night, after Theo was asleep, Elara stood in her kitchen staring at her phone. She'd typed the message 3 times, deleted it twice. The third time she hit send before she could stop herself. "We need to talk, not about us. About something else, something you should know." She set the phone down, face up this time, waited. It buzzed within 2 minutes. "When?" Her hands were shaking. She typed, "Tomorrow after work. Not the medical center, somewhere neutral." "Where?" She thought about it. Somewhere public. Somewhere she could leave if she needed to. Somewhere that wouldn't feel like too much. "Café Coralie, on Davis Street, 6 p.m. I'll be there." She locked her phone, set it on the counter, went to the sink, turned on the faucet. The water ran cold for too long before warming up. She splashed her face. Once. Twice. When she looked up, her reflection stared back at her from the darkened window. Pale, tired, scared. She dried her hands on the dish towel, the one with the faded chickens on it that Theo had picked out at Target because he thought chickens were funny. Tomorrow. She'd tell him tomorrow. The faucet dripped. She turned the handle tighter. It kept dripping anyway. Julian sat in his office until almost midnight. The building was empty. The cleaning crew had come and gone an hour ago, leaving behind the smell of lemon cleaner and the faint hum of the HVAC system working overtime. His laptop was open in front of him. The screen had gone dark. He'd been staring at the same spreadsheet for the last 40 minutes without actually seeing it. His phone sat next to the laptop. Her message still on the screen, something you should know. He'd read it 20 times. Tried to parse what it meant, what she wasn't saying. His mind went to obvious places first. She was seeing someone. She was moving. She hated him and wanted to make sure he knew it. But none of that felt right. There was something else in the message. Something heavier. He thought about the kid, Theo. 3 years old, she'd said. Or had she? He couldn't remember. But the kid was young, preschool age. He did the math in his head, then did it again. His divorce had been finalized 3.5 years ago. They'd ended things shortly after. 3.5 years. 3. The numbers sat in his brain, refusing to connect into anything he wanted to look at directly. He closed the laptop, stood, walked to the window. His office was on the 18th floor. At night, you could see most of downtown. The Willis Tower lit up against the dark, the sprawl of lights stretching north toward Evanston, the black void of the lake beyond. He pressed his palm against the glass. It was cold. Tomorrow, she'd said. Tomorrow he'd know, whatever it was. He stayed at the window until the cleaning crew came back through, vacuuming the hallway outside his office. Then he grabbed his coat and left. The elevator was empty. The lobby was empty. The parking garage was empty except for his car and a Honda someone had left overnight. He sat behind the wheel for a long time before starting the engine. His phone buzzed. He looked at it. A text from Gavin. "You still at the office?" "Go home, man," Julian typed back, heading out now. He drove north. The expressway was clear this time of night. No traffic. Just empty lanes and streetlights blurring past. He thought about Elara's face when she'd gotten out of the car, the way she'd looked at him when he'd crouched down to talk to Theo, the way the kid had looked at him, hazel eyes the same color as his own. His hands tightened on the wheel. Café Coralie was the kind of place that tried too hard to look like it wasn't trying at all. Exposed brick, Edison bulbs hanging from the ceiling, mismatched furniture that was supposed to feel eclectic but mostly just felt uncomfortable. The espresso machine hissed constantly like it was angry about something. Julian got there early. He sat at a table in the back corner facing the door. Ordered a coffee he didn't drink. Checked his phone every 30 seconds even though he knew she wasn't late yet. The place was half full. A couple near the window, leaning close, speaking in that low murmur that meant either first date or breakup. 2 college kids with laptops and headphones typing furiously. A woman reading a paperback with a cracked spine, her tea going cold. The door opened. Elara walked in. She spotted him immediately, paused. For a second he thought she might turn around and leave. She didn't. She walked over, unwound her scarf, the same grey one she'd been wearing yesterday, sat down across from him. "Hi," she said. "Hi." The barista came over. Elara ordered a decaf latte. Julian watched her hands on the table. No rings. Chipped nail polish on her thumb. A small scar on her knuckle he didn't remember being there before. They waited until the barista brought her drink. She wrapped both hands around the cup but didn't drink it. "Thanks for meeting me," she said. "Of course." Silence. The espresso machine hissed. Someone laughed too loud near the counter. "I don't know how to start this," Elara said finally. "Just start." She looked at him. Her eyes were darker in this light. Or maybe it was just that she looked scared. "I need you to listen," she said, "all the way through, without interrupting. Can you do that?" His chest tightened. "Yeah." She took a breath. Let it out slow. "When we ended things, I didn't handle it well. I know I acted like I was fine, like it was mutual, like I understood. But I wasn't fine. She stopped, started again. "I was a mess. I was 26 years old and I just slept with my married boss and then he got divorced and I thought maybe that meant something and then it didn't and I—" She closed her eyes, opened them. 2 weeks after we stopped talking, I realized my period was late. I took a test, then another one. Then 3 more because I kept thinking they had to be wrong. Julian's blood went cold. "They weren't wrong," she said quietly. The world narrowed. The cafe disappeared. The noise disappeared. Everything disappeared except her voice. I found out I was pregnant on a Tuesday, March 15th. I remember because it was the Ides of March and I kept thinking that was fitting, like the universe had a sense of humor. She was talking faster now, the words coming out like she'd been holding them in too long. "I thought about telling you. I swear I did. I picked up the phone so many times, but you'd just gotten divorced. You looked so relieved, so free, and I couldn't—" Her voice cracked. "I couldn't be the next thing tying you down, the next mistake you had to deal with." Julian's hands were shaking. He pressed them flat against the table. "So I didn't tell you," she continued. "I went to every appointment alone. I moved to a cheaper apartment, applied for income-based housing, asked my parents for help even though they're on a fixed income. I knew I'd need to save every dollar I could. I worked until 2 weeks before my due date. And then Theo was born and he was perfect and terrifying and I still didn't tell you because by then it felt too late. Like I'd already made the choice. Like telling you would just hurt everyone." She finally looked at him. Really looked at him. "Theo is your son," she said. The words hung in the air. Julian couldn't breathe. "He's 3 years old," Elara continued. "He was born December 7th. He likes dinosaurs and mac and cheese and he's scared of the dark. He asks about his father sometimes. I tell him his father lives far away. I tell him his father doesn't know about him because I made a choice a long time ago that I thought was right." A tear slid down her cheek. She didn't wipe it away. "I'm telling you now because you keep showing up. Because you met him yesterday and I saw your face. Because I can't keep lying to you or to him or to myself about what this is." Julian's vision blurred. He blinked hard. "Say something," Elara whispered. He couldn't. His throat was closed. His chest was tight. Everything inside him was breaking and reforming at the same time. "Please," she said, "he's mine." The words came out rough, broken. "Yes. The kid I met yesterday, Theo. Yes. He's my son. Yes." Julian stood up. The chair scraped loud against the floor. Several people looked over. "I need—" He couldn't finish, couldn't think. "Julian, I need air." He walked out. The cold hit him like a fist. He made it half a block before he had to stop, pressed his back against a brick wall, slid down until he was sitting on the freezing sidewalk. A son. He had a son. 3 years old. 3 years he'd missed. First breath, first word, first steps. 3 years of someone existing in the world who was half him, and he didn't even know. His phone buzzed. He ignored it. It buzzed again. He pulled it out. "Elara, I'm sorry. I know that doesn't help. But I'm sorry." He stared at the message. Typed, "I need time," deleted it. Typed, "Why didn't you tell me?" deleted that too. Typed, "I don't know what to say," sent it. 3 dots appeared immediately, then disappeared, then appeared again. "I know. Take all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere." He locked the phone, put his head in his hands. Someone walked past, a jogger with a dog. They gave him a wide berth. He didn't know how long he sat there. Could have been 5 minutes. Could have been an hour. Eventually the cold became too much. He stood, walked back to his car, sat behind the wheel, started the engine, drove. He ended up at the lake. There was a small parking lot near Lighthouse Beach, mostly empty this time of year. He pulled in, shut off the car, and walked down to the water. The wind off Lake Michigan was brutal, cut through his coat like it wasn't even there. The water was grey, choppy, angry-looking. The sky matched it. He stood at the edge, hands shoved deep in his pockets. A son. The word kept repeating in his head. Son. 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 He thought about his own father, a good man, present, taught him how to throw a baseball, how to tie a tie, how to shake someone's hand like you meant it. His father had been there for everything, every game, every graduation, every moment that mattered. Julian had missed everything. 3 years. He'd been living his life, board meetings and acquisition deals and expensive scotch in an empty house, while somewhere across town his son was learning to talk, to walk, to exist in the world. And Elara had done it alone. That hit him harder than anything else. She'd been pregnant and scared and alone, and she'd done it anyway. Carried a baby, gave birth, raised a toddler, all of it, by herself. While he'd been closing deals worth hundreds of millions, building a company valued in the billions, accumulating wealth he barely thought about, because she thought he didn't want to know, because he'd looked relieved, because he'd said he needed time. His eyes burned. He wasn't a crier. Hadn't cried at his own wedding or his divorce or his father's funeral, but standing here, wind whipping at his face, the weight of everything he'd lost crushing down on him, he cried. Not loud, not dramatic, just quiet tears that the wind dried almost as fast as they fell. When he was empty, he walked back to the car, sat there for a long time, finally pulled out his phone, scrolled through his contacts, found the one he needed. It rang 3 times. "Julian, it's almost 9. What's wrong?" His sister, Claire, always direct, always assuming something was wrong because he never called this late. "I need to tell you something," he said. "Okay. I have a son." Silence on the other end, then, "What? A son? 3 years old, I just found out. Jesus, Julian, are you—" "How is that possible?" He told her. Not everything, just enough. An affair during his marriage. A woman he'd cared about. A pregnancy he hadn't known about. Claire listened without interrupting. When he finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "What are you going to do?" she asked finally. "I don't know. Do you want to be involved?" He stopped. Thought about Theo's face yesterday, the way he'd looked at the car, the way he'd said, "That's a cool car with that pure, uncomplicated enthusiasm kids had." "Yes, I think so. I don't know how. But yes." "Then you figure it out, one step at a time." "What if I'm bad at it?" "You probably will be, at first. Everyone is. But you're smart and you give a shit, and that's most of the battle. He almost smiled. Almost. Thanks, Claire. Call me tomorrow. Tell me how you're doing. I will. He hung up, sat in the dark car, engine off, cold seeping in through the windows. Pulled up Elara's messages. Typed, "Can we talk tomorrow?" Sent it. The response came fast. Yes. When? Lunch. Somewhere quiet. Okay. Where? He thought about it. Not the cafe. Somewhere else. Somewhere that didn't already have the weight of today attached to it. There's a diner on Central. Murphy's. Know it? I do. Noon? I'll be there. He set the phone down, started the car. The heat kicked on eventually. He sat there until he could feel his fingers again. Then he drove home. Elara stood at her kitchen sink. Hands braced on the counter. She'd made it home an hour ago. Paid the babysitter, Mrs. Chen from downstairs, who asked if everything was okay because Elara's eyes were red. "I'm fine," she'd said, "just tired." Mrs. Chen had looked skeptical, but didn't push. Now Theo was asleep. The apartment was quiet except for the radiator doing its clanking thing in the corner. Her phone sat on the counter. Julian's messages still on the screen. "Can we talk tomorrow?" She'd stared at those words for 10 minutes before responding. Part of her had expected him to disappear, to take the information and run, to decide it was too much, too complicated, too late. But he wanted to talk. That was something. She didn't know if it was a good something or a terrible something, but it was something. She picked up her phone, opened her photos, scrolled back to last month, found the one she was looking for. Theo at the park, laughing, his hair messy from the wind, his eyes hazel, bright, so much like Julian's it hurt to look at sometimes. She'd taken this photo on a Saturday afternoon. They'd gone to the playground on Dodge Avenue. Theo had climbed to the top of the jungle gym and yelled for her to watch him. She'd watched, she always watched, and for just a second, standing there with her phone raised, she'd thought about Julian, wondered what he was doing, if he ever thought about her, if he'd regret the way things ended. She'd pushed the thought away, she'd gotten good at that. But now he knew. Now everything was different. She locked her phone, set it face down, walked to Theo's room, stood in the doorway, watched him sleep. He was on his back, arms flung wide, mouth slightly open. His dinosaur nightlight cast shadows on the wall. The one book he'd insisted on having in bed with him, the dinosaur encyclopedia she'd found at a used bookstore, lay half open beside his pillow. "What did I do?" she whispered to the dark room. Theo didn't answer, just kept breathing, in and out, steady. She closed the door softly, went back to the kitchen. The faucet was dripping again. She turned the handle hard. It stopped, for now. Murphy's Diner had been on Central Street for 40 years, the kind of place that served breakfast all day and had a jukebox that hadn't worked since 2003. Red vinyl booths with duct tape covering the tiers. Laminated menus sticky with decades of syrup and coffee spills. The coffee was terrible. The pancakes were legendary. Julian got there at 11:45. He ordered coffee, didn't touch it. Watched the door. A trucker sat at the counter reading the Tribune. 2 construction workers in the corner booth arguing about the Bears. A woman with grey hair and kind eyes refilled Julian's cup without asking if he wanted more. "You meeting someone, hun?" "Yeah." "First date?" He almost laughed. "No, definitely not." She smiled like she understood something he didn't. Moved on to the next table. The door opened at exactly noon. Elara walked in. She'd changed clothes since yesterday. Dark jeans, a cream-colored sweater, her hair down for once. She looked tired, like she hadn't slept. He probably looked the same. She slid into the booth across from him. "Hi." "Hi." The waitress came back. Elara ordered tea and toast, nothing else. They waited until she left. The silence between them was different this time. Not angry, not scared, just heavy with everything that needed to be said and no clear place to start. Julian went first. "I didn't sleep," he said. "Me neither. I kept thinking about what you said, about why you didn't tell me, and I get it. I mean, I don't like it, but I get it." She nodded, didn't say anything. I was so checked out back then, he continued. From my marriage, from everything, and when it finally ended, all I felt was relief. I didn't think about what that might look like to you, how it might make you feel like you couldn't come to me. I had all the resources in the world, and I made you feel like you had nowhere to turn. It wasn't your fault. It was partly my fault. I should have been more present. I should have asked how you were doing. I should have... He stopped. I should have done a lot of things differently. Elara's tea arrived. She wrapped her hands around the cup but didn't drink. I was scared, she said quietly. That's the truth. I was 26 and pregnant and alone and terrified. And I knew if I told you, you'd do the right thing. You'd step up. But I didn't want you to step up out of obligation. I didn't want to be another responsibility you resented. I wouldn't have resented you. You don't know that. Yes, I do. She looked at him. Her eyes were wet. I loved you, she said. That was the problem. I loved you, and you were married, and it was wrong, and I did it anyway. And when it ended, I thought maybe I deserved to do it alone, like penance or something. Julian's chest ached. You didn't deserve that. Maybe not. But I chose it. And now here we are. The construction workers left. A couple with a baby in a high chair came in. The baby started crying immediately. The mother looked exhausted. Julian watched them for a moment, then looked back at Elara. I want to meet him, he said. Properly, not in a parking lot. I want to know him. Okay. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to be a father, especially to a kid who doesn't know I exist. Nobody knows how to do it. You just figure it out. What do I say to him? The truth, age-appropriate truth, but truth. Julian nodded. His hands were shaking. He pressed them flat on the table. What if he doesn't like me? He will. How do you know? Because he's been asking about you his whole life, not you specifically, but the idea of you. He wants a dad. Every kid wants that. The words hit harder than she probably meant them to. I'm sorry, Julian said, for not being there, for all of it. I know. I want to do better. I want to be there now. Then be there. She said it simply, like it was that easy. Maybe it was. When? He asked. Whenever you're ready. Tomorrow? She smiled. Small. Sad. Tomorrow. They talked for another hour, about logistics, about how to introduce him, about what to tell Theo. Elara said she'd explain that Julian was someone special, someone who wanted to be part of their lives. They'd go slow, no pressure. Let Theo set the pace. Julian asked questions. What does he like? What's he scared of? What makes him laugh? Elara answered all of them. Told him about Theo's obsession with dinosaurs, his hatred of peas, the way he sang himself to sleep every night with made-up songs that didn't rhyme. By the time they left, the lunch crowd had thinned. The trucker was gone. The couple with the baby had left. Just a few stragglers nursing coffee and avoiding going back to work. Outside, the sky was doing that thing where it couldn't decide if it wanted to rain or snow or just stay grey forever. I'll text you the address, Elara said. Okay. They stood on the sidewalk. Cars passed. Someone across the street was shoveling the first snow of the season off their steps. Thank you, Julian said, for telling me, for giving me this chance. You deserved to know. 3 years ago, I deserved to know. I know, but we can't go back. We can only go forward. He nodded. Forward. She started to walk away, stopped, turned back. Julian. Yeah? He looks like you, just so you know. Everyone always asks if he looks like his dad, and I say yes because it's true. He has your eyes, your stubborn chin. Even the way he concentrates when he's building something, it's you. Julian's throat went tight. I can't wait to meet him. Tomorrow, she said. 2 o'clock. Don't be late. I won't. She left. Julian stood there for a while longer, watching her walk down Central Street until she turned the corner and disappeared. Then he got in his car and drove. The next 24 hours moved in strange time. Julian went to the office, tried to work, couldn't focus. His business partner Gavin came in to talk about the Milwaukee contract, and Julian realized after 10 minutes that he hadn't heard a word. "You okay?" Gavin asked. "Yeah, just distracted." "About what?" Julian almost told him. The words were right there. But something stopped him. This was too new, too raw, too important to share before he'd even figured out what it meant. "Just personal stuff," he said instead. Gavin studied him for a moment, then nodded. "All right. Let me know if you need anything." That night, Julian stood in his house trying to figure out what you brought to meet your 3-year-old son for the first time. Toys seemed wrong. Too much. Like he was trying to buy affection. Nothing seemed worse, like he didn't care enough. He texted his sister. "What do I bring?" She responded immediately. "Yourself." "That's enough. That doesn't feel like enough. It's more than he's had. Trust me, just show up." He tried to sleep. Couldn't. Got up at 5. Went for a run in the dark. The lakefront path was empty, except for a few other insomniacs and the gulls that never seemed to sleep. By noon he was showered, dressed, and standing in his kitchen staring at the clock on the microwave. 2 hours. He'd negotiated million-dollar deals. He'd given presentations to hospital boards. He'd sat across from his divorce lawyer and signed papers that ended a 12-year marriage. None of it had scared him like this. At 1:30 he got in his car. The drive to Evanston took 20 minutes. He knew the address, had looked it up on Google Maps last night, then felt creepy for doing it, and closed the browser. Her building was a 3-story walk-up on a quiet street, maple trees out front bare now, a coffee shop on the corner, a dog park across the street where 2 labs were chasing each other in circles. He parked, sat in the car, checked his phone. 1:55. Got out. The front door was unlocked. The hallway smelled like cooking, something with garlic and tomatoes. Stairs to the 3rd floor. He took them slowly. Apartment 3B. He stood in front of the door for a full minute before knocking. Footsteps inside. The sound of a lock turning. Elara opened the door. "Hi," she said. "Hi." She stepped back. "Come in." The apartment was small but bright. Plants on the windowsill. A couch that looked like it came from IKEA. Kids' drawings taped to the fridge. Toys in neat bins along one wall. And Theo, sitting on the floor building something with blocks. He looked up when Julian walked in. "Hi," Theo said. Julian's heart stopped. "Hi," he managed. Theo tilted his head. "You're the car guy." Julian almost laughed, almost cried. "Yeah, I'm the car guy. Are you going to stay for a while?" He looked at Elara. She nodded, encouraging. "If that's okay with you," Julian said. Theo thought about it, serious, like it was a big decision. "Okay," he said finally. "Do you like dinosaurs?" "I don't know much about them." "I can teach you." "I'd like that." Theo smiled, then went back to his blocks. Julian stood there, frozen. Elara touched his arm gently. "You can sit down," she said softly. He sat on the floor, a few feet from Theo, close enough to see the concentration on his face as he stacked another block, close enough to see the hazel eyes, the chin that was absolutely his own. "This is a triceratops den," Theo explained, not looking up. "Triceratops are herbivores. That means they only eat plants." "I know," Julian said. His voice cracked slightly. "Do you have a favorite dinosaur?" "I'm not sure. Mine's Stegosaurus because of the plates on his back. And the spiky tail, that's called a thagomizer." "That's a cool name." "I know." They sat like that for a while, Theo building, Julian watching, Elara standing near the kitchen, giving them space but staying close enough to intervene if needed. She didn't need to. After about 20 minutes, Theo moved closer, handed Julian a block. "You can help," he said. Julian took the block. His hand was shaking slightly. "Where should it go?" "Right here for the roof." Julian placed it carefully. Theo adjusted it, nodded. "Good job." 2 words. Simple. Ordinary. Julian felt his eyes burn. They built together, Theo narrating the whole time, explaining the architecture of dinosaur dens, asking questions about whether Julian thought velociraptors could climb trees, declaring that T-Rex had short arms but was still the coolest dinosaur. Julian answered when he could. Mostly he just listened, watched his son. His son. At some point, Elara brought them juice boxes, apple for Theo. She offered Julian one too. He took it. "Thanks," he said. She smiled. Small. Real. Around 4 o'clock, Theo started getting tired. His building got messier. His questions got repetitive. He yawned. "Okay, baby," Elara said gently. "Time for quiet time. But we're not done with the den. Julian can come back another time, right, Julian?" He looked at her, then at Theo. "Definitely," he said, "if that's okay with you." Theo nodded. "Can you come back tomorrow?" "Not tomorrow, but soon." "How soon?" "How about Saturday?" Theo's eyes lit up. "Can we go see your car?" Julian glanced at Elara. She hesitated, then nodded. "We can do that," Julian said. "Cool." Elara walked Julian to the door. Theo waved from the couch, already half asleep with a dinosaur book. In the hallway, Elara closed the door behind them. "Thank you," Julian said. "He liked you." "I liked him." His voice broke on the last word. She touched his arm. "This is a good start." "It doesn't feel like enough." "It's not about enough, it's about showing up. You showed up." He nodded, couldn't speak. "Saturday," she said. 10 a.m.? I'll be here." "Okay." He started down the stairs, stopped halfway, looked back. "Elara?" "Yeah? I'm not going anywhere. I know I can't make up for 3 years, but I'm not going anywhere." She smiled, sad but hopeful. "I know." He walked down the rest of the stairs, out onto the street. The air was cold, the sky was grey, somewhere a dog barked. He got in his car, sat there, put his head on the steering wheel, and finally let himself feel it. All of it. The grief for what he'd missed, the joy for what he'd found, the terror of what came next. When he looked up, the sun was setting, pale orange against the grey. He started the engine. The radio came on, something instrumental. Quiet. He drove home slowly, hands steady on the wheel. 6 months later. The park on Dodge Avenue looked different in spring. The maples that had been bare in November were full now, bright green against a sky so blue it almost hurt to look at. The playground was crowded, kids everywhere, climbing, swinging, shouting. Parents clustered on benches, scrolling phones or drinking coffee or just watching. Julian sat on one of those benches. Theo was at the top of the slide, waving. "Dad, watch!" "Dad." The word still stopped him sometimes, made his chest do something complicated. "I'm watching," he called back. Theo went down the slide, landed in the mulch, ran back to do it again. Elara sat next to Julian, a coffee in her hand. Decaf. She'd switched a few months ago, said the caffeine was making her too anxious. He'd noticed she seemed calmer lately, less like she was waiting for something to go wrong. "He's gonna sleep good tonight," she said. "Yeah." "You still okay for tomorrow?" "Of course, why wouldn't I be?" "I don't know, just checking." Tomorrow was Julian's weekend. They'd worked out a schedule, rough at first, lots of adjustments, but it was settling now into something that almost felt natural. Every other weekend, 2 nights a week for dinner. More during summer, they'd figured. They were still figuring. Theo had his own room at Julian's house now, painted blue, dinosaur sheets. A bookshelf Julian had spent 3 hours assembling while Theo supervised and offered advice like that piece goes the other way. "Dad, and you're doing good, but you missed a screw." It wasn't perfect. There were hard days. Days when Theo asked why Mommy and Daddy didn't live together. Days when Julian felt like he was failing at every single thing. Days when Elara's patience wore thin, and they had to have careful conversations about boundaries and expectations, and all the complicated logistics of raising a kid together while not being together. But it was working. Slowly. Imperfectly. But working. "I signed the papers yesterday," Elara said quietly. Julian looked at her. "The custody agreement." "Yeah, it's official now. Joint legal custody, our parenting plan, all of it." He nodded. They'd been working with a mediator for months. No lawyers, no court. Just 2 people trying to do right by their kid. "How do you feel?" he asked. She was quiet for a moment, watching Theo climb the ladder again. "Relieved," as she said finally, "and scared, grateful, all of it." "Yeah, same." Theo reached the top of the slide, waved again. They both waved back. You're good at this, Elara said. At what? Being his dad. Julian's throat tightened. I'm trying. I know. He knows too. He talks about you constantly. Dad said this. Dad showed me that. It's actually kind of annoying. She smiled when she said it. Julian smiled back. Good annoying or bad annoying? Good. Definitely good. They sat in comfortable silence. The kind they'd found somewhere in the last 6 months. Not the silence of strangers. Not the silence of people who used to be in love and didn't know how to talk anymore. Just silence. Easy. A woman walked past with a stroller. The baby inside was crying. The woman looked exhausted. Julian watched her for a second, remembered being terrified 6 months ago, wondered if she was terrified too. I saw your sister last week, Elara said. Claire. Yeah, she came by the medical center, wanted to say hi. She didn't tell me that. I asked her not to. I wasn't sure if it would be weird. Was it? A little, but good weird. She's nice. She likes you. She told me so. What did she say? That you're stronger than I gave you credit for. That I'm lucky you're giving me this chance. Elara looked at him. Her eyes were softer than they'd been 6 months ago, less guarded. We're both lucky, she said. Theo came running over, face red, hair sweaty. I'm thirsty. Elara pulled a water bottle from her bag. Theo drank half of it in one go, handed it back. Can we get ice cream? After dinner, Elara said. But I'm hungry now. That's why we're having dinner soon. Can Dad come? They both paused. This happened sometimes. Theo asking for things that felt too close to playing family, things that blurred lines they were trying to keep clear. Not tonight, baby, Elara said gently. Tonight's a Mommy and Theo night. Dad's got work stuff. Technically true. Julian had a call with a client in Milwaukee at 7, but he would have cancelled it if Elara had said yes. She didn't, and that was okay. But tomorrow, Julian said. Tomorrow we're going to the aquarium, remember? Theo's face lit up. To see the sharks. Yep, the sharks. And the octopus. And the octopus. Cool. He ran back to the playground. Sorry, Elara said. For what? For saying no. I know he wants us all together sometimes. It's okay, we're doing this the right way, slow. Yeah, another silence. Less comfortable this time, heavier. Do you ever think about it? She asked. About what? About us. If we'd done things differently. If there could have been a different version of this. Julian thought about lying, thought about saying no, but they'd promised each other honesty, even when it was hard. Sometimes, he said. Yeah, me too. They watched Theo. He was on the swings now, pumping his legs, trying to go higher. But this is better, Elara continued. This way, co-parents, friends, maybe eventually. Not whatever we were trying to be before. You think? I know, before was messy, complicated, built on the wrong foundation. This, she gestured between them. This is built on him, on doing right by him, that's solid. Julian nodded. She was right. He knew she was right. But there was still a small part of him, the part that remembered how she used to look at him in his office late at night, the part that remembered her laugh, the way her hand felt in his, that wished things could be different. He didn't say that. Instead, he said, He's lucky to have you. He's lucky to have both of us. Yeah. Theo jumped off the swing mid-air, landed hard, got up laughing. That kid's going to give me a heart attack, Elara said. He's fearless. He gets that from you. He gets everything good from you. She looked at him. Something passed between them. Not romantic, not anymore. But something. Understanding, maybe. Respect. We should go, she said. I need to get him fed before he crashes. They stood. Elara called Theo over. He came reluctantly, dragging his feet. 5 more minutes? We can come back this weekend, Julian said. When you're with me. Promise? Promise. That satisfied him. He took Elara's hand, started walking toward the parking lot, stopped, turned back. Bye, Dad. Bye, buddy. See you tomorrow. Love you. The words came so easy for him. No hesitation, no fear. Love you too, Julian said, and meant it completely. They left. Julian stood in the park for a few more minutes. watching other families, other kids, other parents trying to figure it out. His phone buzzed, a text from Gavin. Meeting moved to 8. That work? He typed back, works for me. Another buzz. His sister. How'd the park go? Good. Really good. Proud of you. He smiled, put his phone away, started walking to his car. The sun was starting to set, that golden hour light that made everything look softer, kinder. He thought about the last 6 months, the late-night calls with Elara, navigating logistics. The first time Theo had fallen asleep on his couch, tiny body curled up like a comma. The parent-teacher conference where he'd sat next to Elara, and the teacher had assumed they were married, and neither of them had corrected her. The hard conversations, the careful boundaries, the slow building of something that didn't have a name, but felt important anyway. He thought about 3 years, everything he'd missed, everything he'd never get back, but also everything he had now. Everything he got to be part of going forward. It wasn't perfect, it would never be perfect, but it was real, honest, built on something solid. That was enough. He got in his car, started the engine. The radio came on. Some song he didn't know. He left it, drove home. Final message. Some stories don't begin the way they're supposed to. They begin in mistakes, in secrets, in moments we'd take back if we could. But life doesn't offer take-backs. It offers forward. And forward is where the real story lives, in the small moments, the daily showing up, the choice to be present, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. Love isn't always the grand gesture. Sometimes it's just consistency, reliability, being there. That's the lesson Julian learned sitting on a park bench in spring, watching a boy he barely knew 6 months ago go down a slide for the 50th time. That's the lesson Elara learned, letting go of perfection and embracing what was real. That family isn't always what you imagined, but it's what you build piece by piece, day by day, and that's enough, more than enough. It's everything. Your thoughts matter. Have you ever had to forgive someone or yourself for a mistake that changed everything? Sometimes the hardest conversations are the ones we avoid the longest, but they're also the ones that set us free. What would you do in Elara's position? In Julian's? Your participation means a lot to the channel. Please share your thoughts in the comments. Did you think Elara was wrong to hide Theo, or did you understand why she did it? Drop your honest opinion in the comments. I read every single one. If you stayed until the end, you're my kind of viewer. Like, subscribe, and let's keep telling stories that actually matter.